Hello, Larry. Hello, Larry.
Yes. Can you
I
hear me?
apologize there. We had a little technical difficulty there. I clicked on something and it sort of took us out. You can hear me now, right?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Well, Larry, one of the things that I think that you were saying that was outstanding is that the modifications of the new financing guidelines for equipment finances would enable consumers and commercial businesses to be able to use programs such as CPACE and other programs to purchase heat pumps and other type of uh, weatherization saving energy saving costs. Now, in states like California, which I know you're very familiar with, they have passed legislation through the state legislatures that all new commercial home developments, these homes must come with solar systems already installed with battery storage included in those new homes. And they are also are developing some of this tech legislation in the state of Florida. Have you experienced this as a new financing model for developers and investors? Are they looking at this? Is the cost of utilities being that that's one of the major affordability issues that people are talking about behind groceries? Are those developers and those investors looking at these options for their projects?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Ron. And the answer is yes. And so I don't know how much you heard prior, but you touched on some of it. Um, there's two ways to look at it from a finance perspective. It's direct to consumer and direct to business. The consumer financing primarily being in the form of you have a residential structure and you have residential financing, and to institutionalize how we create more efficiency or more cost savings where people can afford these improvements, they need to be included in direct consumer financing tied to the collateral of the property. That's one solution. Same thing applies on the B2B side when it comes to business owners who own commercial space or real estate developers like myself. I'm a financer and a developer that is developing new real estate. There needs to be included in underwriting criteria improvements and enhancements where you're taking in consideration, okay, if you have these energy efficiency improvements being made to the collateral, it does like any other thing, it improves the value, and in improving the value, that efficiency provides cost savings, which reduces risk ultimately for the customer or the developer or the small business. But because it increases that savings, that means that you can afford more debt. And so you see that in most instances from an underwriting perspective included in on the consumer side and what they refer to as DTI, or the debt to income ratio, where they'll say instead of a consumer being able to afford a maximum debt to income ratio of X, let's say it's 36%, be, taking into consideration these energy efficiencies, that debt to income ratio can actually be increased. And in some cases, other enhancements to the products can be made in the form of interest
Excuse
rates.
me, Larry. Excuse me, Larry. When you came back into, did you keep the other window open because on the Zoom because we getting like a feedback? Did you
Oh, the other window?
yeah,
Let me see. Give me just a
we're
second.
getting we're getting your voice twice. It sounds like you're talking and then I hear you again. You,
Give me just a second here. Is this better? Is this better
Yeah,
at all? Is that better?
that's much better.
Okay, okay, good.
Okay,
Thanks for
Larry,
providing.
one of the reasons why I wanted you on because you are traveling nationally. You see the changes in the marketplace in time, and there's a great need for building more affordable housing, and this is a major problem. And the reason why I'm saying that because you talk about coastal areas, I'm originally I was raised 70 miles from Myrtle Beach, and I have two homes that I need to borrow to fix up. But one of the problems I've had with those properties is that the appraised value of the property is less more. After, I put about 30,000 in one unit in 2007. If you did a home appraisal today, I would still be underwater. Now I'm 70 miles back from the the ocean front, Myrtle Beach. In 70 minutes, put your foot in the water. So we're actually the second county back from Horry County where Myrtle Beach is located. So my
Mhm.
question to you in terms of looking at people who are looking to build homes are going in and doing these renovations to older properties in the smaller rural towns because we have so many people being displaced from our major cities and they are being forced to move back to their home states, and many of them cannot find housing, and they end up not understanding that that Section 8 voucher that they may have had in New Jersey or New York is not going to pay the same thing in North Carolina. It's not going to pay the same thing in South Carolina. So when we begin to look at how do we balance or leverage the playing field if we don't have more uh, uh, input from the federal government as relates to the unfair appraisals that we find impacting brown and black communities because it's almost impossible for me to come and borrow money from you or any other lender if I can't pay it back because the rents have been suppressed. When you have a situation like the state of South Carolina doesn't have a levy law, as a real estate investor or someone who invests in buying and flipping properties, that's just about the only approach that's left available in some of these small rural towns because the values that you get after you go in and do the renovations and what you can charge for rent in those marketplaces doesn't allow you to be able to even pay back the loans. So, what type of products or what would you suggest for uh, people who are interested in investing in their properties, but they're from smaller rural markets where you don't have a great deal of industry or economic engines like you have in a major city where you know you got to. But what we do have there, we have what we call the tourist industry because Myrtle Beach brings in $10 billion a year, and you can't get to uh, Myrtle Beach without going through Dillon County. And now, since the new guidelines on from the insurance companies have hit in, indicating that if you're not 70 or 80 miles back from that water, they're not going to insure your property if if these are your premiums are going to be so high that people can't afford it. So I think those things have a direct relationship on real estate, on the real estate market, and what people are willing to invest. If they can't see how they can turn a profit or get a return on their investment.
Right. And then so Ron, you touched on a number of items. One item you didn't spend too much time on, but I definitely want to give attention to is the disproportionate um, use of unfair appraisals. And first of all, I just want to applaud the work of a number of organizations and associations, but particularly the National Fair Housing Alliance and Lisa Rice's group for really leading the effort to really focus on addressing unfair appraisals, adjusting and changing the industry to promote increasing diversity in the industry, of creating more diverse appraisers, and really just shining the light on the facts of realtors and sellers of properties needing to quote unquote whitewash their properties to get the maximum value that they deserve for their property in a number of markets across the country. And so there's been a lot of work, I would say, over the last five plus years to really focus on addressing that. And I want to applaud that work. Secondly, I think that I am specifically going to talk about your comment as it relates to the migration of people to lower cost markets to increase their affordability to areas like the Carolinas. Um, I spend 90% of my time talking to investors who are regular people across the country. Some of them have subcontractor, general contractor experience, W-2 job workers who are transitioning out of those roles, either looking for other careers or trying to take their fixed incomes and come up with a way where they can live comfortably while at the same time protecting the assets that they have left for their heirs, right? And I would say many of the times we're shooting behind the eight ball, and we're reacting to what's already happened, and we're late to the game. And so, an example of that is, anywhere in the country, we can talk about gentrification and what's being done to our community, but by the time we want to actively participate, a good portion of the assets have already moved. Capitol Hill, Washington, D.C. has already been taken, or other areas in the country, and we're slow to the game. And so, why am I bringing this up? It's important for us to be on podcasts like this, getting cutting edge information as it relates to things that are going to be happening in the future. So we're not shooting behind the eight ball, but we're more in front of what's going to be happening where we can take action. And so, an example of that is across the country in these coastal cities, as we talk about energy efficiency on the commercial lending side, there are resources like CPACE and dollars to promote the renovation and the development of residential and commercial space. In these coastal cities across the country, including your Carolinas, they are changing density laws, particularly your major metropolitan cities, where it reduces the time to entitle property by eliminating the need to change zoning, where you can build more structures on a traditional residential lot, which increases the overall value of that lot and what you can do with it. Our society is changing. The cost of living generally is higher, and we all know that the key component or variable that impacts the cost of living is housing cost. And so I live in a market where the in the suburb of Seattle, Washington, where the cost of living, the median household income, even though it's below the national average, is just under 200,000. The average house is 1.4, $1.5 million. Um, it's extremely expensive. You have other areas that are very similar to this across the country, but you have California. Definitely New York, DC, major markets across the country where when you compare median household income to median home value, you're looking at five, six times of what one can afford. And so, unless you're coming from a family that where you can access capital to get into home ownership, or you save significant capital from working, your ability to have what we used to call, the thing that everybody wants is quote unquote the American dream is minimized. I think looking forward, we want to be on the front of this is we really need to understand how in many municipalities, counties, and states across the country, they are changing laws to minimize density laws and the cost, excuse me, entitlement, zoning cost, and the amount of time it takes to get through zoning that's allowing people to take their existing structures. If you're an existing homeowner or you're buying an existing home with an FHA, you can buy a loan with a 3% down with an FHA loan, but you actually have property that can hold more than the existing property that's there, that's allowing you to rent it out, that's allowing you to sell an existing structure on that same legal lot. Um, and it's also it's addressing density, and it's increasing affordability, and it's allowing seniors to stay in their home longer, to move in some cases out of their primary residence into an ADU on the same property, while renting out or selling the current structure, or allowing another family member to live in the property. And so that's just one of many things that we need to be on the cutting edge, just like energy, as it relates to how we continue to live, increase affordability, while at the same time providing us one of many solutions to create or manage our existing wealth.
Well, Larry, I've had you for 30 minutes now, and I told you I wouldn't take a lot of your time because I know how busy you are. But I have just one other question. One thing that's very troubling to me, Larry, is that in the major markets, whether it regards this is in the deep south, it's in the west, midwest, east coast, it doesn't matter. But if it's a college and university town, we're finding that our students and even the faculty that work at the schools are being forced that they to the point where they can't afford to purchase a home working at the university. I'm experiencing this in real time with my daughter who's on faculty at Howard University. Howard University has some townhouses that they're building at Michigan and North Capitol Street near their reservoir. Those units start around $800,000. Well, my daughter, who is a single mother who teaches in the School of Fine Arts, she makes about 84K a year. She's considered low income, Larry. She qualified for the first time home buyers program. Long and short of it is, she could we tried to we found our home to borrow money to help her get into the property. The case in point is that the units they had a number of units that were supposed to be considered low and moderate income in this new development that they're building. I think it was about 22 units. They told people they had to get on a lottery in the lottery just to be able, even though they're already pre-qualified, even though they have their letters from their lenders, what they qualify. My daughter qualified for about 360,000, but it wasn't enough to help her get into this particular property, and that's the only property she can afford to get into in the city. We're talking about farther south, far south right now. We're talking. $600,000 for a starter home off of what we call, it's now called uh, Marionberry Avenue, known as Naylor Road back in the day, but we're talking about $600,000, Larry. So that is one of the reasons why I wanted also to have this is playing havoc in Atlanta. I've been speaking to people about the housing situation there around our HBCUs, and this is problematic in terms of getting more affordable housing built for our faculty and students surrounding our HBCUs. And the energy conservation and energy savings piece would be a piece that I think should be similar in legislation, should be moving like the legislation that have moved forward in the state of California, that they're requiring that the developers come in. And that has been the approach that I have taken with two of the owners of those energy uh, innovations. One is called mobile carbon capture, which I won't go into a lot of detail with you because it doesn't fit into the line of financing that what you provide. But I want to thank you for your time and to sort of get your feedback on what would you suggest that young first-time buyers should be looking at if they are living in a college town and university and they're trying to get into a property?
Yeah, good question. And so, real simply, um, uh, don't be afraid and don't hesitate to purchase. If you're gainfully employed, in many cases, um, you might be in an area where you can afford homes that are affordable. In those situations, take advantage of low down payment programs, particularly FHA's 3% down. Um, if you're single and you're purchasing, that FHA 3% down program allows you to purchase a home up to 4 units. And so, and the income from the additional up to 1 to 3 units that you're renting out can be added to increase the amount of home you can afford. I bought my first house when I was 21 years old. And if I ever made a mistake, or if there's anything I would have did it differently, I would have used that FHA loan differently in purchasing a multifamily unit. And so I would encourage them to do that. If you're in a high cost market, really look at what's happening as relates to the changes in municipal density laws and the development of ADU structures and smaller structures, condos, and things of that sort that are really being designed to keep home ownership affordable. And I think you're going to find some good solutions in high cost markets that address that.
Well, Larry, I want to thank you for taking time from your very, very busy schedule to join me on the platform of Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. And I know that my listening audience says, well, what does real estate have to do with new renewable energy? Well, if you don't have real estate, you don't have anything to put renewable energy solutions on. So we
Right.
got to start with the base. You got to be able to look at how we can get our developers who are building housing to look at being more inclusive with these energy efficient and energy saving options that to go into the construction rather than having the person to move into the house and then have to jump through that hoop. And with that being said, brother, I want to thank you very, very much for taking time from your busy schedule. And would you please share with our listening audience how people can get in contact with you, your web address, and your information? And if you'll be in the Washington metropolitan area in the near future, if you're going to be participating in any kind of forum or something, could you please let people know that? Because I know you're very, very busy person.
Yep. And so I own two key companies. One is Clear Blue Capital Group. That's our commercial lending company. Again, working with early stage entrepreneurs and real estate developers. We provide coaching, credit, and capital solutions. Our website is www.clear, CLEAR, blue, BLU with no E, group, GROUP.com. And that's our primary company. I'm also a real estate developer. I own Clear Urban Development. I'm a fellow part of the Amazon Housing Accelerator program, in which I've been working with them for over 3 years now. And we specialize and provide consulting and development services for large scale affordable housing developments, as well as I was stating earlier, developing residential structures where regular people can get the highest and best use of their real estate to develop their home. And so that website is www.clearurbandevelopment.com. But on that site, you can get a hold of me and just send a message, and it'll get to me. And any way we can support what you're doing, we'll be more than happy to do so.
Well, thank you very much, Larry, and you have a very, very blessed day. Look, I don't know. I think I sent you the information on the Metro Center development there in Jackson, Mississippi, that Mr. Will Shirley is working on. If not, I'll send it to you as soon as I get off the air. But I think it's something you could be interested in looking at. So I'm going to get that to you.
I look forward to it. It's not far from my home, which is my hometown, Memphis, Tennessee. And I got a lot of good friends down in Jackson. So any way I can help out, I'm more than happy to do it.
Thank you very
All right.
much. You have a blessed day.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye bye, Larry. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Larry Gilmore. And Larry has worked with me here at the Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative LLC for a number of years. I highly, highly recommend him and his services and his organization and his company. He is spot on. He's very, very, very diligent. He, in fact, dots the I's and crosses the T's. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in some very, very turbulent times. Uh, I don't have to tell you about the the show that went on last night in our nation's capital here in Washington, D.C. Many of the promises were just that, broken promises that we heard from 47 last night. I, re- I refer to the sitting president asked 47, when you have 34 felony convictions and when you win an election based on claims of affordability, and when you come out and indicate to the public that we are winning, we who? I began to look at the thousands of electronic uh, newsletters that I receive every day that I do research from when I'm preparing for this show here on the platform of Solar Now in the Future. I just want to basically uh, look at some of the things that has taken place uh, from our news and events tab and sort of share with our listening audience. Uh, Trump's big tech giveaway just cost U.S. tax dollars some $51 billion. This was an excellent article which was published by David Cash, Kass, Americans for Fairness in Action Fund. A new report was released from the Institute of Taxation and Economic Policy that reveals Meta, Amazon, Alphabet, and Tesla avoided some $51 billion in federal income taxes. Last year, following the massive Trump so-called one, I call it brutal bill, during the same period, these companies were reporting massive profits to shareholders, stock prices climbed, executive compensation soared, stock buyers enriched investors, yet through expanded deductions, stock options, write-offs, accelerated depreciation, and offshore tax rules embedded in Trump's law, their effective federal income tax rates plunged. This is the corporation system Republicans defend and permanently extended. It allows some of the most profitable companies in the world to contribute far less than working class families and small businesses relative to what they earn. Meanwhile, billionaire wealth has exploded with more than 8 trillion since 2017. Trump's tax law has increased over 15 trillion. Corporate profits are strong. Executive pay remains sky high. Yet Congress still claims there's no money for child care, housing, nutrition, assistance, or health care. Tell the House and the Senate to end corporate tax breaks and make big pay for their fair share. Man, this is the bottom line, ladies and gentlemen. Now, also, you're going to want to look at the real reasons U.S. troops just deployed in Nigeria. It's not what you think they're saying. And you're going to find out it's going to have a lot to do with the red minerals on the continent and access to those minerals and who's going to control what. Also, we have a celebration of life for Reverend Jesse Jackson Jr., which was done by Reverend Roland Martin on the Black Star um, Martin Network. He did an excellent job with that. Also, a recent conversation with Antoine Thompson and on the ballot that he would be he's on the ballot as a candidate for Maryland State Delegate District 25 to the General Assembly. People want to check that out. EPA is attempting to undo 60 years of pollution standards. You want to read that, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, there is an upcoming municipal investment fund developers and owners coming at DOE. It's something that you would also check out. Also, ladies and gentlemen, commercial real estate for beginners book. This is something that you want to check out. The directory of state and low and moderate income clean energy programs, directly a state low and moderate income program. You want definitely want to check that out. You want to check out the real estate news. That is another outstanding weekly bulletin that Mr. Gilmore's company puts out. You'll be able to get more data on what's going on in the field of real estate. Then we have the 2026 National Association of Blacks and Solar Board of Directors meetings minutes there that we put there for transparency. I presently serve as director of the board of directors for NAS, the National Association of Blacks and Solar. Also, you will be able to find FDA partnership to boost jobs and reduce poverty. This is something that the Foundation for Democracy in Africa is doing on the continent. They just signed a MOU with the DRC, Democrat of the Republic of Congo. February updates on PACE Nation. You can get more information on PACE programs. Mr. Gilmore referred to the PACE programs. You'll be able to get information directly on from our news and events tab on CPACE, not on our watch. A national town hall meeting on freedom. Well, we also took a hard look at how voters are experiencing rising energy costs and key takeaways for the decision makers who are running for office. So I strongly recommend that you take an opportunity to check that out. This is the richest black families in Washington, D.C. And if you want to know who they are, we have that information there. Explore job opportunities in the clean energy sector. This was a job fair that was put on by the Greater Washington Cities Collaboration Group, and how voters are experiencing rising energy costs. As we said, clear takeaways for energy. The myth of a fair EV fee. While Republicans propose consumer tax would, would rise, cause a rise in pollution and costs for families. You want to check that out, ladies and gentlemen. Also, we have under our news and events tab a number of other articles that we have researched and provided for you, your reading, for you to be able to arm yourself and protect yourself in such a unpredictable and highly, what we would say, volatile marketplace as we find ourselves living in the U.S. at the current time, living in major markets such as the GMC. Ladies and gentlemen, you will have been listening to the online digital podcast, Positive Change Online Digital Podcast Radio TV Network. We will be uploading this video in the actual text, the actual conversation onto our uh, Podbean channel uh, in the very, very shortly after we end this show. But remember, ladies and gentlemen, this show is brought to you by the National Association of Blacks and Souls and the Black Sports Foundation, ESL, HBCU, Stellar Radio Talk Show Initiative. And you can get more information on that initiative by logging on to our website at positivechangepc.com. Positivechangepc.com. Without being said, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the conclusion of the end of another exciting edition of Solar Now and the Future with an Economic Impact on Black America. And what we'd like to say, ladies and gentlemen, is we definitely, we urgently need your support for this platform. And if you can make any kind of donation to our platform, we would greatly appreciate it. We have a GoFundMe link on our new on our caption on our website at the Positive Change Peace Purchasing Corporation LLC. If you would go there and make that contribution to our organization, so we can continue to try to bring you more of these informative, substantive conversations around financing, real estate, energy conservation, and how we can reduce our utility costs in our homes and businesses. uh, this platform, that is our goal, that is our mission, to advocate on behalf of African and African American owned renewable energy companies to address the high energy costs at our historically black colleges and universities. We utilize black owned farmlands and HBCU campuses to develop capacity and initiative for renewable energy projects and to educate the African and African American community about the economic impacts of climate change and the need for environmental education through Black Talk Radio programs such as Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. Until next week, ladies and gentlemen, we want you to meet us here. We want you to meet us back here as we close another exciting edition of Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. Until next week, we say go in peace.